Moving to item number 9, landscape maintenance services contract, RFP 21-01, presented by our finance director, Spencer Morrison.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I am bringing formal bid 21-01 to award a contract for landscape maintenance services. We are joined tonight by, we have a few people in the audience. We have Dan Stencil, thank you for being here, and crew. And we have Parks and Grounds Superintendent Matt Langley, should you have any operational questions, and Director Brad McIntyre is also available. I also want to recognize the efforts of accountant Kevin Rivera on my team for putting together this formal bid. This was the largest of his formal bid experience, so he did a great job. City does contract for routine landscaping maintenance services for 88 locations throughout the city. Locations include walkways, bike paths, landscape maintenance districts, medians, and select city facilities. Finance staff informed 28 known landscape contractors of the request for proposal and mandatory pre-bid meeting. 2 legal notices were also placed in the Appeal Democrat. City intends to award the landscape maintenance contract to the highest scoring contractor. The initial term of the contract will be for 1 year with the option of 5 one-year extensions at the city's request. 5 contractors attended the mandatory meeting and 4 proposals were received. 4 city staff members evaluated the contractor's proposals in 3 phases: compliance with the RFP and experience and capability of the contractor, reference checks and site reviews, and cost were used in the scoring. As you can see in the final scoring, ranked 1 was Landscapes by Stencil of Live Oak, California, followed closely by score, not so closely, but next closest was Vargas Landscapes of Sutter, California. Based on the scoring results, staff recommends awarding the landscape maintenance contract to Landscapes by Stencil of Live Oak, California in the amount of $350,568 for 1 year. The contract includes the option of 5 one-year extensions as approved by the city manager. May I entertain any questions?
Councilman Kirchner or Councilwoman Espandola, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Spencer, I have a question in the reference, the gap between Vargas and Landscapes by Stencil. And even though Vargas was much less expensive, what were the concerns between the two and the ranking of it?
So in the scoring, Landscapes by Stencil did much better from the panel in the technical aspect. So responsiveness to the bid, this bid specifications in general was probably the biggest gap between the two. And they were close enough in price that by the time when we factored in the cost, it didn't give Vargas a very large advantage.
I see. Is there any way to reduce the cost through Stencil at all, if that's a conversation?
No, Councilwoman.
How do we know when Stencil employees are following standard work requirements? Do they do, like, through the HR, do they check for background or drug test, or how do they keep track of their employees when they're working for on city properties?
We have Mr. Stencil in the audience if we'd like to bring him up and ask him that question.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. I don't do drug testing, to be honest with you, but we do. I'm very particular about who I hire. Mostly it's family and friends, people from my church, and if it's anybody outside of that, I interview them and check their driver's license records and things like that. But I haven't gone into drug testing just because I feel like I like to have that trust between people I hire. And I feel like if I do that, then they're going to feel like I don't trust them. And so that's kind of how I feel. And that's kind of, you know, I've got the best crew I've ever had. I've got some guys that worked for me for over 10 years. I've got one guy that's worked for me for 15 years, one of my lead workers. And to me, they're family. You know, they feel like family to me, a lot of my employees. And so I want to have that trust with them. So, any other questions? It's kind of just telling you honestly how I feel.
Okay, well, thank you. I can't see you. I wish I could see you with camera-wise, but I apologize that we're in this circumstance. I was just curious to know how you also know how well your employees are doing the work when they're out at different locations in the city.
Well, I check up on them, believe me. I put a lot of miles on my truck checking on their work, and you can ask my daughter. She works for me. She's sitting here, and I chew them out sometimes. Sometimes I've been told I'm a tyrant, but the job's got to get done. So.
All right. Well, I'm not asking the questions that I haven't been asked by other community members, so I appreciate your.
Well, that's why I'm here, because if there's questions, I want to answer them for sure. This contract means a lot to me, and the city means a lot to me, and this is really important. So.
Well, I appreciate your the being open and honest and willing to answer the questions that sometimes feel uncomfortable, but I think it's better just to be open about it and have the conversation in a public setting like this.
Sure. No, that's great.
I thank you so much for doing the work.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, Councilmember Esmendola, in addition to everything that Mr. Stencil just said, part of the job description that we have for our parks manager is to continually evaluate the landscape maintenance districts on a weekly basis. So like any contract, the contract is only as good as we manage that contract and hold our contractors accountable. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that those L&Ds are being evaluated on a weekly basis as well from my staff.
Thank you, Brad. I really appreciate that additional piece of information.
Spencer, would it be possible to have Mr. Langley come to the podium?
Absolutely, Mr. Langley would be pleased to come to the podium.
Whichever one you like. I'm assuming you're the person that's evaluating Mr. Stencil's work, and I know Mr. Stencil's probably been with the city for a while now. Do we have any issues with their work at all?
Occasionally, a few minor issues, but everybody has to hire new employees, and sometimes they think they can get away with stuff, but they can't.
Okay, so you have no, as the chief evaluator of the services, you're satisfied with the work that Mr. Stencil and his crew has done?
Yep, very happy.
Excellent, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Langley? Okay. Bring it to the council for any other questions. Yes, Sean?
I have no questions.
Okay. Through the mayor, Mr. Stencil, thank you for being here tonight. I just wanted to kind of bring this back around. I got a couple of questions, but we have to remember as a council, we're not the employer. We utilize, Mr. Langley and such to do the supervision, and would never want to get into your business, Mr. Stencil, and tell you how to manage your employees, because that's not our role. The question that I have gets back to actually a maintenance issue, and we've covered this once before. I come down Stabler Lane daily, and at one point there was a question of who took care of the sucker vines on the crepe myrtles and different things up in that. Is that a Parks and Maintenance, or is that under yours, Mr. Stencil? Okay, because I know it got resolved. I'm just figured I'd take the opportunity to figure out who was doing. Okay, well, I appreciate you guys doing it, and the areas you guys service it looks really good, so thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Stencil, thank you. know you've been doing work for the city, and we appreciate the work. And as Mr. Langley says, obviously, there's going to be occasions where new people are in and all that stuff. I think we all have experienced that. So with that, and thank you for being here tonight, too, and answering the questions. With that, I entertain a motion.
Through the mayor. I move that we award a contract to Landscapes by Stencil of Live Oak in the amount of $350,568, $350,568 for 1 year for landscape maintenance services of landscape maintenance districts, landscape islands, and selected city facilities with the option of 5 one-year extensions, and authorize the city manager to approve the extensions.
And I second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice Mayor Shaw, a second by Councilman Harris. May I have a roll call, please?
Through the mayor.
Oh,
So sorry, again, just
no,
an opportunity for public.
no, my left-hand man just told me. Do we have any public comment on this?
No public comment.
Thank you. Oh, we do.
So I was looking over this before I sat down and already made in my mind, as I sat down, that I wanted to comment on this number 9. And I didn't realize that the owner was here. I don't know him. But every time I see their crew around town, and my wife also with me, we comment on how great a job they're doing. So I think they're doing an excellent job, and I never see his crew standing around. As an employer, that is rare, okay? And drug testing, we don't do it either. In this day and age, you might not have any employees out there. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Okay, I've asked for public comment. We've received it. We don't have any additional. We have a motion and a second, and so now we will take our roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Espandola,
Aye.
Councilmember Kirchner,
Aye.
Mayor Boomgarden.
Yes. All right. Congratulations, Mr. Stencil. Look forward to our continued partnership.